everyone, this is Jen from Fiber Me This, and in this video I'm going to go over the bind off option 2 knotted bind off on page 6 of the 150 fade pattern. If you have chosen this option, it is a 2-row bind off which starts with a setup row. I am using DK yarn here so that you can see a little bit better. But the pattern is written for fingering yarn. So the first thing we need to do is determine whether we have an odd or even number of stitches. In this case, my swatch has 17 stitches. So under the setup row, I'm going to follow the directions for the odd number of stitches. This is on the wrong side of my work. Those instructions say to knit one, then purl one, knit one, all the way to the end. So I have already worked that row. The objective, whether you are working with an odd or even number of stitches, is to end with a knit stitch, which I have. So we are going to turn our work and move on to the bind off row. So the bind off row is initially going to start by working steps 1, 2, and 3, and then we continue on by just working steps 2 and 3. This bind off provides a little bit of stretch, but it has a really nice, delicate, little bumpy edge. It finishes the shawl off really nice if you are doing the garter border at the end of your shawl. Okay, so let's do the bind off row. I will go through the first 3 steps slowly, reading what's in the pattern. So it first tells us to slip the first 2 stitches purlwise to the right needle. Then to bring the working yarn to the front of the work. So we'll bring our working yarn to the front of our work and pass the 2 stitches back to the left-hand needle. So we slipped those purlwise, we brought the yarn to the front, we put them back, and now we have our working yarn coming out between stitches 2 and 3. And then it asks us to wrap the yarn around the front of those 2 stitches and knit them together. Okay, so we have done a decrease. We have 1 stitch on our right hand needle. Then we're going to move on to step 2, which is to purl the next stitch, which should be showing as a purl. So anytime in the bind off when you are purling, the stitch should always show as a purl. It does. We are going to purl that stitch, and then still in step 2, it next instructs us to pass our knit 2 together over. And so now we have our first little knot. We are going to move on to step 3, which is with yarn in back to pass the next stitch purlwise to the right needle, to bring the working yarn to the front, pass both stitches on the right hand needle to the left. Again, we have our working yarn coming out between stitches 2 and 3. It then instructs us to wrap that yarn around those 2 stitches and knit them together. So we have now completed steps 1, 2, and 3, and we continue on by just working steps 2 and 3. So going back to step 2, we are going to purl the next stitch and then pass our knit 2 together over, and we now have 2 little knots. So let me do that 2 more times, working steps 2 and 3. We just worked step 2, so we're going to continue with 3. We are going to pass the next stitch purlwise to the right needle, bring the working yarn to the front, pass the 2 stitches back, wrap our yarn around, knit them together, purl the next stitch, which is showing as a purl, and pass our knit 2 together over, completing our 3rd knotted bind off. We'll do that 1 more time. with yarn in back, slip the next stitch purlwise to the right hand needle, bring the yarn to the front, put those 2 stitches back on the left hand needle, wrap the yarn around the front, knit them together, purl the next stitch, and pass. So once you get going, it really is fairly simple, and you get this really delicate, very pretty bind off. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me at fibermethis@gmail.com, and enjoy your shawl.